Alright, welcome to the Meganeg Gaming channel, and today we're going to do 2 reviews on games that I played today. We're going to skip the whole random picked game for today unless I get to a 3rd review. But what we're going to look at today is it's a 2001 RPG by Troika Games. Currently the publisher is Activision. It's available on Steam and GOG. Requires a lot of work getting it up and running on a modern system. And that game is Arcanum of Steamworks and Magick, Obscura. It's one of the latest CRPGs of the classic period. Use the arrow keys to move the screen, the mouse to move the people. You have a party where you're really not controlling the actions of the party at all. However, you do gather people as you go through the game. But like a lot of games where you pick a class, you have certain skills, and you go from there, and then you run into somebody and you might join your party. With this, you're dealing with a variation of the D&D rule set. You have a whole set of characteristics that you can configure your character with. You start off with being able to choose male or female, and then you have a variety of races to choose from, and some of those are gender locked. You obviously have the human, you have dwarves, gnomes, halflings, you have ogre, you have half ogre, you have orcs and half orcs, elves and elves and half elves. And each one has different characteristics. The elven people are more towards magic, while some of the other races, like gnomes, are more towards technology. They have a bent towards technology. Basically, the setting here is you have your fantasy setting with magic, you have mages, you have the melee characters, and all that. With one twist. Take a fantasy setting and put it in the middle of the 1800s Industrial Revolution, where you have all this technology coming about. You have some like when you start off in the game, you're in a Zephyr. It's basically an aircraft. It's a giant hot air balloon type thing, a blimp almost. And that gets shot down by some very primitive flying machines by some orcs. And throughout the game you can learn a bunch of technology skills or magic skills. The issue is, according to many people in society, is that magic and technology do not mix. And a lot of people perceive technology as being science, while magic is the violation of science. Basically have the physics anti-physics dichotomy there. And you get put on a special cart in the back of the train away from the engine if you're a mage or have certain magical abilities or magical items. So you go throughout the game. You start at the plane crash with a little cutscene of a gnomish looking figure telling you to look for an item. I know what I'll do. I'll go ahead and play that. I'll get that loaded up. However, in the meantime, we'll continue with the review. Let's get Arcanum up and running, and we'll go ahead and show the intro for this review. It kind of gives the general setting. At the same time, we'll go through all the different character customizations. So, let's do some switching here. Okay, there we go. Here's a multiplayer campaign as well. I tried to do it, but it's rather difficult to get set up. I'm going to view the intro. I'll go ahead and mute the mic.
Help me, please. Oh, thank you, my friend. I haven't got much time. You must find the boy. Find the boy and give him back his ring. He will know what needs to be done. Now, listen to me. We had to do it. He did unspeakable things to us. We had no choice but to do as he said. There are so few of us left, but the work is almost finished. And then the evil, oh, you can't imagine. He's coming back to destroy everything and everyone. Please, just find the boy. Tell him that I escaped. I came back to warn. He will know what to do. You, my friend, it's all up to you.
Then you see somebody come in there, which actually here's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and create a new character and show what you can be. So you have your initial stats. Your base stats are strength, constitution, dexterity, beauty, charisma, perception, willpower, and intelligence. And you have some adjustments here: poison recovery, reaction modifier, heal rate, speed, AC adjustment, damage bonus, and carry weight that's based on strength. You can pick as far as males go, you can pick a human, dwarf, elf, half-elf, gnome, halfling, half-orc, half-ogre. As far as females go, you have elf, half-elf, half-orc. Not a lot of choices for the females. Humans are basically the balanced. Elves are the magical ones. And orcs have some. All the different races have different bonuses. However, you can also pick a background. Raised by snake handlers, 20% increase to resistance to poison, but suffer a penalty to beauty due to a large number of bite scars on your arms and legs. You have a good 2 dozen options here that affect your stats. So let's say you just pick a. You're not going to actually do anything with this character really. Choose the name. And do demo egg. So you have the stats here. You have skills, bow, dodge, melee, throwing, backstab, pickpocket, prowling, spot, trap, gambling, haggle, heal, persuasion, repair, firearms, pick lock, disarm, traps. You have a whole variety of technology skills, herbology, electric, gunsmithy, therapeutics, mechanical, explosives, chemistry, and each one of those you have a variety of things you can do, make, including a mechanized arachnid. Then you have your different magical abilities: conveyance, divination, air, earth, fire, water, force, mental, temporal, summoning, phantasm, necromantic white, necromantic black, nature, more meta. You have the alignment meter, which is whether you're on the evil or good side. You have your resistances here. You have your general attack, resistance, magic, fire, poison, electrical. Over here you have a meter that's on top is magic, on the bottom is technology. It's where what you're more aligned with. Are you more aligned with magic or technology? And you'll have, if you're too far into the technology alignment and you try to use magical spells, there is the chance of, I don't know if it's true of spells, I know if you're too far into the magic alignment and you try to use certain technology items, you could have a critical failure and end up, try to use a rifle, it fails and you end up dying because you end up getting shot by your own rifle. So you have a whole variety of things here. It's one of the few games where you can do a pure charisma build and use persuasion to talk your way all the way through the game to the final boss. And you can talk the final boss into, you can convince him that his views are invalid, and he'll recognize it because he spent a certain amount of a long period of time with those beliefs. That he's too far gone to actually change, and the only thing that can happen for the benefit of people is for him to die. So basically you talk the final boss into committing suicide if you do that build. Or you can go back here and do a half ogre male. Throw everything into strength and melee and just pound people to death. Start off, you can buy some items from the shopkeeper. So we're going to exit out of that. So as far as the character customization, you can make about any character you want. You can do a pure like supermodel beauty type build and try to beat the game just based on your being beautiful and well liked by people. So let's.
I can't believe it. I mean, you and then the Zeppelin and.
Now this is spoiler time. I'm going to demonstrate 2 different things if I can get this to show up properly on YouTube. I'm borrowing this from, let's see. This is from Z versus A. Let's see if I can get this to come up properly. Come on. Apparently not. up. I think we can at least get the dialogue.
I have no aspirations for power or domination like your companion Aranax did. Aspirations that I became the victim of. Those are the motivations of the living, and I alone place myself among them. If only I could show you the places I've seen, you might understand the things I say. I've been to the desolate lands, wandered by those souls who still see the lands of the living, but wear the cloak of the dead. Blind to their own ends, they cry, passing through one another. It screams, tattered and spent. Do you feel its bravado that has brought us here to justify its existence? If what you're saying is correct, then what is the nature of life? Which is the natural state? Why is there pain on one side and uncertainty on the other?
So the character says
Perhaps
that
it is my own arrogance, my own bravado that has brought us here to this crossroads. The question is, where do we go from here? We've spoken of fate, of prophecy. Have I traveled this road too long to turn back? Perhaps I have no choice but to continue on to the end. Truly, I wish there were freedom for me. But I cannot let go of this life knowing that I might be called back to its pain. No, it seems I have no choice. Really? You can sever the bond which hold my soul to the lands of the living. This object can actually do that. So many years I've raged against the living. All those years, and the distortion was in my own soul. No man can see the nature of his flaws with diseased eyes. The contradiction lies within me. Yes, I thank you, and I'm sorry. So very, very sorry. Perhaps some souls are born into death. They never knew how to live. Goodbye, traveler. My road ends here. I wish you luck on yours.
So yeah, you can actually talk the final boss into killing himself. I forget the video I watched, but the person actually phrased it as such. It's a pretty close exact quote. Might be slightly off. It's a game where you can convince the final boss to kill himself out of love for a world that he hates. Or you can go in there as a bow person, you can use magic, you could use technology to get through the game. And the world is large enough where you could spend a good 40, 50, 60 hours in this game looking for every little detail that's stashed away. You probably spend 100 hours, to be honest. So compared to a lot of newer games, this has a lot more depth. And it also has a much more coherent world and story than something like, let's say, the Elder Scrolls series. When you really start looking at the lore, you end up finding a lot of contradictions and stuff that just wasn't all that well thought out. As far as a pure role-playing game, even though Virgil comes along and says, oh yeah, you're the chosen one, you really don't feel like the chosen one throughout the game. And spoiler alert, you find out that perhaps you weren't the chosen one, but you still have the chance to play this character that could make a difference. But, yeah, you can pickpocket people, you can kill NPCs, and they don't regenerate. There's a lot of things you can do in this game where you can kill certain NPCs and actually end up in a situation where progressing is much more difficult. The NPCs, if they're in the towns, they go to bed at night. They get up in the morning, they go to work. They open their shop. Let's say you were to rob a shopkeeper, kill him in his sleep and rob him. Well, you could steal all the items in the store because items are in the store, just like you'd expect. And there's going to be consequences. If you're in there and you bust out a window or beat down the door trying to get to inside a closed shop, the person's going to wake up and they're going to react in self-defense. Or some might run off scared. There's a variety of different behaviors and personality traits of different NPCs where you actually feel like you're interacting with somebody of substance. It's not just somebody with a big arrow over their head, where you click on them, you skip all the stuff to read, because in a lot of games you just press next a bunch of times after you click the person that's highlighted. You get a big X on the map, and possibly even more things to help guide you to where you go to do the quest, and then you get you can auto path your way back. There's a lot of lore within the game. You can find receipts, little notes, telegrams. I mean, it is a CRPG style game, so its graphics definitely aren't up there with even Morrowind. But as far as a CRPG of this time, when this game looks its best, I'd say it looks better than Ultima Online did at the time, or even Fallout 2, or the first Baldur's Gate. Like I said, the base game, if you try to play it now, or even try to play it back then, it has a lot of issues as far as handling, as far as 3D rendering. And there is a lack of balance between different skills and abilities. You might think, oh, I'm going to be a such and such technology person. I'll build a bunch of these kind of traps so I can make my way through the game with trapping. However, since they didn't have, had they had another year or two to develop this game, they could have made everything balanced and added more items in the game, as well as NPCs and just other aspects to the environment to balance it, different skills and actually make them useful in game. So you do end up with a set of about a dozen or so different ability, skill, and attribute paths, just character creation paths that are optimal. One issue with this game compared to a lot of modern RPGs is that when you move between the towns, a lot of the stuff on the map's just empty space. There's certain places where it's flagged to have certain animals or other enemies you have to attack. And as far as running from city to city, you can just use the map to auto path. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, since I was a sole survivor from this plane crash, but my persuasion and charisma was pretty much maxed out. I kept getting stopped by this group that was trying to kill everybody on that plane. And I was able to talk myself out of it. So I go to a town, and somebody from the newspaper says, "Oh, do you have a story to sell? Aren't you the survivor from such and such?" So I tell him my story. The next day, I'm walking through the town, and the paper boy's selling a paper about there being a plane crash survivor. A lot of the NPCs in the town start giving me money if I talk to them because they feel bad for me for being the sole survivor from the plane crash. And then that group from earlier that I talked about, that I kept talking my way out of saying, "Oh no, I wasn't the survivor." The next time they stop me, It wasn't the same script that they said. I tried to talk my way out of it. They said, nice try. That's not going to work this time. Maybe you shouldn't have ran your mouth to the newspaper. And I was forced to fight. Or run. And a lot of times when you run, you have the health and you also have fatigue. If you're fatigue, basically your stamina bar goes down to 0, you're going to be unconscious. But yeah, like if you're watching the video, I actually talked this half ogre into giving me the key to the room, because I said, oh yeah, so-and-so sent me here. It's a guy that I found out his name from somebody else and found out he stole a painting and he kept in that room. And I said, oh yeah, the so-and-so, the thief, told me to come here. He said, oh, that's fine. Now if I go in there, I'm wearing a Sunday best dress. If I go in there wearing a set of like plate mail armor, people are going to treat me a lot differently. I actually got mocked by somebody once when I went to a nicer house wearing plate mail armor, and they called me a barbarian. Certain groups don't like other groups in this game. You have the dichotomy of magic and technology. Certain groups don't like elves. Elves don't like certain groups. There's kind of elves versus dwarves. There's actually quite a bit of racism in this game, as far as between the different groups. If you talk to certain townspeople, it's kind of reflective of actual society. There's a lot of people that have prejudiced beliefs. They might not act on them and might otherwise be decent people, but people do have a kind of are kind of bent towards protecting their in-group and perceiving the out-group as a threat or being inferior or having some other negative qualities associated with it. There's a lot of time put into developing this world and making it an actual believable world, which is something you don't find in a lot of... You play a game like The Witcher 3, which isn't a bad game. I'm not criticizing people that like it. It's a good game. I wouldn't say it's one of the top games of all time, but it's a solid game. But you can do things like go into town and block the road with your horse, and NPCs just run into you, say sorry, run into you and say sorry. You can rob somebody, take all their gold, talk to them and say, hey, and they'll say, hey, can you help me with finding such and such? I'll give you all the gold I have. When you just rob their chest right in front of them. In this game, that's not going to happen. And you have, what, a good decade and a half, more than a decade and a half of time between the two games where this AI should have advanced. Yeah, like I said, this does play like a CRPG. It's one of the CRPGs that's aged the best, but it's definitely in need of a proper remake with a modern engine. Keep everything else the same. You can even do just give it a modern engine where you can move with the WSAT or another set of keyboards. Put in a 3D type engine. Or I think this would even make a basis for a good MMO environment, and you could keep it in this type of isometric type setting. So yeah, it's like Morrowind, where you have a notebook, it's a journal, it jots down certain notes for you as you move through. You gain XP by doing quests and by successfully hitting things when you attack. So let's say you have this whole party of people, which since my charisma is high, I can get a whole mess of followers, and they can do the attacking for me. Problem with that is if I go out hunting for XP, and I don't tell these guys to lay off and let me fight stuff, they'll have everything dead before I can even swing at it. So I don't get XP because they did anything. So, once you get the patches you need, fix the direct draw and some other files in there, and potentially add some add-ons like the better maps. There's a whole there's a unofficial patch. There's a whole community around this game. It's working on patches and different updates to make it better. You actually get an editor where you can create maps. It's a very moddable game. If I had the time, I would implement some type of player housing in this and find a way to make it the main campaign something you could do over multiplayer. Yeah, as far as sound, the sound effects are kind of basic at times, but the music is some of the best music of the time period for an RPG. It really fits the time period. You have this violin-heavy, slow-paced, kind of depressing music when you're in these dreary towns that are reminiscent of the Industrial Revolution, including problems of that time. So over the course of playing this game today, I found a whorehouse, and I was able to make money by becoming a worker there and going and sleeping with somebody and going back. There's not many games that let you do that. And I'm pretty sure if you put that in a game now, there'd be some subset of people that would claim to be of some type of feminist bent, and they would want to protest the game. See what else. You can try to pickpocket people. What else can you do in this game? Here you're going to see me die because I made the decision of going in the wrong neighborhood. Cops don't even go in that neighborhood. Well, the game's version of cops are guards. It's a moderately difficult game. And many people, if they're used to modern RPGs where they give you hints, arrows, quest markers, all that stuff, you might need a guide. If you're in this for the story alone is sufficient to make it one of the better games of all time. Some of the mechanics are wonky, but the story is sufficient to make up for the gameplay, which could be better, but that's more of a product of the time than anything specifically wrong with the engine. Let's see, what do people rate it? I think this is going to be one of those games where the user score and the Metacritic score and scores from like the main magazines are going to be quite skewed. 8.7 user score, 81 Metacritic. Let's see. Oh, PC Gamer gave it 90. Let's find somebody that rated. Armchair. No, Armchair Empire. Between the somewhat overly complicated nature of the game and the slow, dull battles, there just wasn't a lot to get excited about in the game. I have a poor attention span. I have a low tolerance for doing something that bores me. I have a collection of about 1,200 games here. And if I start playing a game, a lot of times I'll play something for 10, 15 minutes and move on to the next game. This is one of the few games where I can sit down and I could play it for 10 hours and still be having fun with it. Now, it's not the most exciting combat system, but you have the choice between real-time and turn-based combat, so you can actually set up to meet the style of gameplay you like doing. I'm one of the few people that prefers the real-time combat in this game, which can get quite hectic when you get to high levels and you have other characters in the game that can move it. Really shoot 5-6 arrows in a second. So the issue becomes, where do you rate this game as far as, if you go by the base game, you have to take a point off because of how many issues it had just due to lack of polish. Just getting that thing up and running is a mess. But that's not the game people are going to play now. If they get this, they're going to get it from probably GOG or Steam. There's tons of places out there that will direct you to the right patches to get. the unofficial patch and all the different mods and updates you can get to this to make it a quite smooth experience. We can run at a higher resolution or in a window. So, where does this game go on the list? I think because of the story, and then you have a community behind the game that has done so much to work out some of the issues that developers just lack the time and resources to work out. The final product is the game that the developers made, and it was released by Troika Games, plus all the unofficial patch and all the user updates to the game. That's the whole package here that I'm going to give a score to. And for that, given it has one of the most highly customizable and creative character creation systems, you're given the ability to take on about any role you could even imagine in this game. It has a fair difficulty curve, has a variety of different options as far as combat, play style. You can actually do a charisma build and just walk through the game, talk your way out of bad situations, and just follow the story to the end. There's not many games that give you the option of doing a hardcore RPG experience with melee characters and magic and everything, or you could just be beautiful and talk your way out of everything because of high charisma. I'm giving this game a 5, but the question is, where do I put it? Let's see. I'm going to put it above Darkfall on the list. Acheron's Call has a slightly better character creation system, I believe, as far as XP being rewarded as you complete a task and you can assign it to different abilities. This game does have a more comprehensive set of skills and abilities than Acheron's Call did. But Acheron's Call is also an MMORPG. It was also released 2 years before this, so it's going to have to be trying to bring this game up online as an MMORPG would be quite the feat. As far as the lore in the game, it's comparable to Acheron's Call. A lot of the quests are kind of fetch quest type quests that you'd expect. There's also some where you have to go kill something. Really, a lot of the quests are the same general style RPG quests of that time period. So where do I put it on that list? Oh, I'm thinking about that. Let's see how much this game costs if you're wanting to buy it. Your best bet, I would say, is go to GOG, where you can pick up this game for, let's see, this game shouldn't be too much if you're buying a digital copy. $5.99 you can pick up this game and get a good 50 to 100 hours of gameplay out of it. Game for somebody that's just doing a single run of a single type of character. It's an expert, top tier RPG player. He's going to get a good at least 20 hours of play out of this game. So you're talking anywhere from a quarter to 10 cents to, for some people that'd be 5 cents per hour of enjoyment out of that game. And you have almost unlimited replayability. There's also the multiplayer campaign, and you can make your own campaigns. So you're given a lot of creative freedom, and there's a lot you can do with the game that extends its longevity. So, yeah, $5.99 if you go on eBay. You can get this thing, it looks like pre-owned, $7.99. If you're wanting it sealed in a box, it's $25 and up. It's not too expensive. Disc only $7.99. So it's a cheap game. It's It's much cheaper than Baldur's Gate if you're trying to buy an original copy. The game can be a little bit grindy. I'm going to put it in a number 2 spot on the list, right behind Azeron's Call. And not because it's a better, or not because it's a worse game than Azeron's Call. But the games that are pretty much tied as far as my review, I'm going to go with the one that I enjoy more, the one I feel is more fun. It's just basically either one of those games is a great game to check out. And with this one, it's a single player game, so you don't have to worry about a server and everything. You don't have to worry about trying to play on emulator like Azeron's Call, where people are trying to reconstruct the game from captured packets and whatnot. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the review, and check out my Let's Play. Some of them I do audio commentary, some of them I do role playing. Well, as you see there, I need to unlock a chest. But I had dynamite, so I used dynamite to blow up the chest to get the item out of it. I could have also lockpicked that chest. I could have smashed the chest with a melee weapon. I could have tried to talk the person who owns that chest into giving me the key or opening for me. It's a whole set of things you can do. Now let's say you're just a bad person throughout the game. Some of the people you're with will actually leave your party. Everybody has kind of a reaction score versus compared to you. There was a point in time where a lot of my people were skeptical and suspicious of me. So, anyways, hope you enjoyed the review. Check out the Let's Play, and definitely get this game if you enjoy RPGs or games with a good story. Well, once you get all the patches and get the game up and running, once you get through all the frustrating hassle of that, there's an enjoyable experience here. Listen, some bugs and some awkward things here and there, but not enough where it affects the overall game. So this is going into the masterpiece category, 5 out of 5. And please like, subscribe, and have a great night.